So, welcome to this session on plant spirit communication. I knew it was last minute, so I just put it out there and see who would be able to make it live. And those that can't make it live can receive the recording. So it just felt like this has been brewing for a while, shall we say, a long while. And I have sat on it like a hen on an egg going, not sure if this is ready to hatch yet. So I just went with it because I've been getting the poke from the plants for a very long time to start to share a little bit more publicly outside of the containers that I hold within courses and retreats, or when I'm speaking with other plant people, shall we say, and actually just start to share this a little bit more widely. So to give you a little bit of background, I've never been one for attaching myself to any labels or identities, because not what somebody is sharing is who they are. And it grows and evolves just as we grow and evolve as well. So one of the best ways I suppose I share is to give some people some idea is that I do work with alchemy. I work with mysticism and the Celtic wisdom, and I work with plant spirits and communication with the earth, earth keeping, earth guardianship, if you will, and many other aspects as well. But what I would really share with you is that I've been on a very direct path for a very long time. So it's not something that's learnt from books. It's learnt from life experience and direct connection with the plants themselves. And yeah, that is actually in the way that my lineage is Celtic lineage, from Ireland and Scotland. So I'm sitting here in Ireland upon Slieve Donard Mountain, and I'm overlooking the Irish Sea. And where we're placed, I always find is very important to take care of the land in which we're walking upon, or walking in, as I like to say, rather than walking on, because walking in is with the earth. And getting to know the landscape around us and getting to know the plants and trees around us. That's really how I started from a very, very young age, was taking myself off into the forest and just sitting with a tree. And gradually I started to realize that I was having pretty much full-blown conversations, but not necessarily in English, with the trees and with the plants around me. So my foundation really is with Celtic plants, and that continues to be so. And so I do also work with other plants, which I will speak of, including Mama Cacao, but from that foundation, which I feel is very, very important. And how that evolved was beginning to work with plants and herbs in ritual, in ceremony, and also for my own healing as well. So don't recommend this, by the way, as a professional, I'm not supposed to say these things, but from my own experience, this was that early, I would say from my mid-teens to my early 20s, I would say that I suffered from depression. And I knew that my way out was not with medication. In fact, what I felt was that the medication was numbing me out. And so that I was actually suppressing the feelings which were actually giving me the symptoms of depression. And so I very naturally gravitated towards St. John's wort and towards many other modalities, and including spending a lot of time in nature to help to bring myself out of that. And I did. I don't recommend that unless you have professional help and a professional herbalist alongside you. So just have to give that disclaimer, but that's how I started to realize the power of plants. And also I experienced a lot of chronic pain in my life as well, and found to work with different plants with intention and with ceremony to help me through what I was experiencing with chronic pain or chronic illness. So Mama Cacao came to me during a time of transition. I worked in a corporate job and had been working training with shamanic training as well, on top of other training that I had with healing work and energy healing before that, that also helped me with my own healing path. Was that it quite quickly started to show that I needed to come into service full time. And so at that time, I ended up, unbeknownst to me, being recruited by Mama Cacao and by another plant medicine to apprentice with them. And Mama Cacao was very instrumental during that time of helping me to transition from a corporate job where I was very much in my head to really being of service and really bringing me into my heart and into my body and softening a lot of the edges that I had built up from growing up in Northern Ireland, from ancestral wounding, as well as my own trauma in this life as well. And she helped me to really come into the body and to soften those edges and, well, what the word is, come and gravitate more towards myself, my true self, my true essence and my soul. And she guided me to start working alongside Celtic plants as well, that I already had a relationship with, because she's very synergetic with other plants. And I'll speak a bit about that later on. But it only felt right when I was working with these plants to also honor their roots of where they were coming from and the lineages that they were coming from, because I was aware that I'm Indigenous to these Celtic lands, but I'm not Indigenous to the Mayan lands and the Amazonian lands, as it was in that case. And so I took, shall we say, a pilgrimage to the Amazon and to work with plants there and to build a strong relationship with them and the lineage and the land in which they came from. And also, number one priority, which always is with plants and creating a relationship with them, was for my own healing. And from there also I worked my way up to Mexico and Guatemala as well, to connect with the Mayan lands and to connect with cacao, because very little is known about how to work with cacao in the traditional ceremonial way. Interestingly, with Amazonian, but there is more of a stronger direct connection with the Mayan ways. Was that they have also received the wounding of colonization, and it's really, really fresh for them. It's very on the surface for us here in Ireland, but it was really fresh for them. And so there was a deeper connection with them from that ground of deep knowing. And also that the Mayan ways didn't feel alien to me at all. They felt very, very closely connected with the Celtic ways. They're very, very ancient systems. And I did meet a Mayan shaman there as well, and we had a lot of exchange, and also he shared a fire ceremony as well. And it's just such a huge cosmology there. But what the essence really of what I'm sharing here is that their love for Mama Cacao and how they revere Mama Cacao and how they really brought that sacredness to that connection, and that same sacredness that I have always felt with the Celtic plants and with any plant spirit that I am connecting with. And I think we all really, especially in the Western world, need to remember that sacredness within us and the sacredness that it is to connect with a plant being, being to being, heart to heart, and the humility that that actually takes to soften in and to listen. And in that softening in and listening, not only do we directly connect to that sacredness within us, we also connect to that sacredness that is in all beings around us. And to this day, I continue with that at the core. And it's, I always like to say as well, it's a continuing as well of eating quite a lot of humble pie when the human Western mind just even begins to think it knows better, begins to think it knows something. Nah, we know very little. And the more that we think we know, the more we realize we don't know. And so there really is stripping back all of the time of really tuning into that inner wisdom and that inner sacredness, and just asking as well of, why am I connecting to this plant? And the way that I have always, which I'll share in a moment just with a little bit of meditation, the way I have always naturally done so is just through that deep listening and noticing who makes themselves known. And just like finding a new friend or an old friend, they just go, hiya. I'm sure you know yourself as well. It just all of a sudden a certain plant starts to pop up. And if you don't listen the first time, they'll let themselves known a lot. You'll just start seeing this particular plant everywhere, or somebody just keeps mentioning it to you, or something pops up on the internet or whatever it may be, that they usually make themselves known. It's a very much a two-way street. They do really want to connect with us. They are really that, I would call like that benevolent force, that, and they also are our ancestors. So they have a lot of ancient wisdom, a lot of guidance, and a lot of healing that they can help us with. And they can also be the bridge between the physical world and the other world. And that's really, really helpful. Another aspect as well is that just like people, we need to also be very aware that they have both light and darkness. We are all made of that. And we live in a world that has a lot of duality. And we often bring that within ourselves as well, of how we're approaching things. And that's why I keep saying about the humility and the sacredness and pure intention from a pure heart. We all have access to that wisdom. We all have access to magic within us and around us. And it is our choice how we engage with that. And it is exactly the same with plants. If we connect to them thinking we are somebody that knows something, we can start to get ourselves quite hooked into a colonial paradigm, I'll say. We will get hooked into that one who takes, rather than that one that is in sharing, is in communion, is working with, not just working, not just taking a plant. So that's why I'm very, very careful to speak of communing with that plant, co-creating with that plant, and building that relationship like we would with a friend, that we get to know them. And we're asking for permission before we meet them and things like that. And giving offerings as well is a very good way of working with them as well. And that offering could be a prayer, that offering could be herbs, as long as it's really sincere and from the heart. That is the real key. The shadow aspect I have seen with my own eyes, and unfortunately, I see it a lot more than I wish to see it. And that is when people get into some aspects or a codependency with a plant, where they are taking it quite unconsciously. And so what we take that isn't given kind of has free rein to take from us as well. It's kind of the way it balances out. And it can also accentuate, especially depending on the plants, but can accentuate our own shadow or our ego as well. There are many, many plants that have that dual aspect to them, that they can either really, really help us to soften those edges, like I say, or to really come into ourself and into integration with our ego and integration with our shadow. Or they can actually just stir up the shadow more and strengthen the ego more. Yes, Finn's just my temple dog. You'll hear in the background with a big yawn. And yes, we don't want that, do we? No. So so instead of me just talking about this, why don't we do a little bit of a meditation just to connect? And this is a way that I've connected with trees and plants, like I say, from a very young age. And the beauty of it is that whenever you have a connection with that plant, and the spirit of that plant, you do not necessarily need to be around them or to ingest them in order to make that connection and in order to benefit from that as well. And so that is how I'm able also, and not only to connect for myself, but also to connect if I'm working with a client and bringing in plant spirit healing, that I don't necessarily need them or myself to ingest that plant, because I've built that relationship with that plant and have the permission to work in co-creation with them. So I can share that with you now, say 10-15 minutes or so, and just get yourself into a comfortable seated position that you can have your spine nice and straight but not rigid. Because what we're really looking for is to have the sit bones sitting in the front of the sit bones, so we have that real connection to the earth and to the ground, and that we're not holding ourselves up and tense, because that just keeps the energy locked up, but just softening the flesh around the bones and noticing that the crown is meeting the sky. So we become this bridge that we are between heaven and earth, just as the plants, just as the trees are. Just taking a few breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth with a sigh, just letting it all go. Softening into the body. Bring in the awareness of this body like the earth. And if you like, you can imagine from the crown, like the top of the mountain, and just coming through down level by level, down the mountain, down the spine, down the body, descending down through the chest, through the belly, through the seat and the legs, into the earth. And allowing yourself just to sit in this mountain-like presence. As we connect in with the earth, noticing through the layers of soil, we're connecting in from our roots to the tree roots, to a mycelium grid. It covers this entire planet Earth. Just like the soft tissue in our body, the fascial network in the body that connects throughout our whole body. So we can enjoy the sense of connecting into the ecosystem that we are, connecting into the ecosystem that is this earth. That there is no separation. We are nature. And as you connect into this grid, this ecosystem, connecting to the land in which you're sitting upon, connecting down to the center of the earth, connecting to the womb of the earth. And that connects to your womb or hara. Men have an etherical womb as well, for we all came from the womb. And connecting from there through the mycelium network to the Mayan lands, to Guatemala, where the cacao wisdom is embedded in the earth. And also embedded in the people, the Mayan people, that lovingly cultivate and pray with the cacao deva, the cacao tree. And the sense that a cacao pod is like the fruit of Mother Earth. It carries the cacao beans, the cacao seeds. And it's a juicy, sweet fruit with these bitter, hard beans. And these beans, these seeds, grow into a cacao tree in the jungle. And we connect like we're sitting beside the tree under the canopy. We connect with our heart. And deep listening through the heart to the sacredness of our being. And connecting to the sacredness of this cacao tree. Just listening through the senses, through the body wisdom, and the heart's infinite intelligence. It's this cacao tree that carries the heart blood of the earth. Connecting your heart to her heart. And opening up to receiving what she may have to share with you. It can be a feeling, sound, sensation, an insight. It's listening, and stillness. And remembering as well that it really takes a softening of the mind. Listening from the heart. So if you're finding that the mind is doing its thing, just allow it to be. And soften into the awareness of the heart space. I'm giving thanks to Mama Cacao, Ish Cacao, for what she has to share, and to the wisdom and the abundance, and the love, and the source connection that she has shared with humanity over thousands of years. Knowing that this connection is more precious than gold, even if we don't yet understand the connection. It's what is important. The remembering the sacred. Just very gently start to bring your energy back into yourself. And coming back through that mycelium grid. Down to the center of the earth. And back to the land in which you're sitting upon. And back to this body. And the feeling of this mountain-like presence. And just saying to yourself quietly, thank you, thank you, thank you. Gracias, gracias, gracias. Amor, amor, amor. Bringing your hands to your heart in prayer position. Bowing down the head to the heart. And just when you feel ready, just slowly and gently emerging and transitioning back to the shared space we're in, wiggling your fingers and your toes, stretching the body, opening up. And opening your eyes just when you're ready. So you can use that kind of meditation if you wish when you go for a walk, perhaps in your local park or woodland or forest and find a tree that you feel drawn to, and maybe asking it, hello, and do you mind if I have a seat beside you, and just see what comes when you come into a meditation like that. And be very gentle with yourself as well, to not necessarily look for answers. It's very interesting that you see me looking up there, because I just saw this random light in the sky, and I'm at the bottom of a mountain, so it could only be a helicopter or a drone, but it was just reminding me of that light within. That, oh, there it goes. That's very weird. So it went down and then it went straight up. I have no idea what it is. So connecting heaven and earth. Who knows? So yeah, I wanted also to mention as well about, yes, connecting with plants over time. So often I find it best to work with one particular plant at any particular time. And I like to work sometimes for what I would call a Mayan dream spell, which is 13 days. Always made more sense to me than a week. Have you ever noticed 7 days in a week, you can never catch your breath? Like, you're never caught up with anything in 7 days. It's a Gregorian made up time. Whereas the Mayan calendar is every 13 days, which is very similar to the lunar calendar as well, where you've got the new moon and the full moon, just to keep it, it's very complex, but to keep it as simple as possible. I always find 13 days much more digestible. And I also flow with the lunar cycles as well. And I work with the Celtic medicine wheel as well. So working with the cycles of the seasons as well. And it's very, very helpful to notice the changes within my own being and my body throughout the year, and what different plants I might need at different times. And just really listening to that, but working, when I'm building relationship with a plant, I will work with it exclusively for a period of time to notice the different qualities that it brings, both in the physical and the metaphysical qualities that it brings. As we have a little bit of a habit in this global north of, I want all the things, and then you don't know what's working for you, and you can't really connect. So it's a bit like, you know, if you go to a party, like, it can be a bit overwhelming with lots of people around. Whereas if you just go and meet someone for a cup of tea, you get to know them a bit better. It's a little bit like that. So that's one thing I would mention as well. And there's also with Mama Cacao, is that she's very synergetic with other plants. And so there's certain plants that she's more friends with, shall we say, and synergizes well with. That gives us even more benefit when those two are working together. But it's always important to have the connection with the plant that we're working with and Mama Cacao first and foremost on their own before bringing them together. And that's how I share in the Cacao Practitioner Course, which is coming up on the 4th of February, is that we're very much going into deep communion with Mama Cacao and working with the earth, and working with also different aspects of ourselves, the heart opening aspect of Mama Cacao, and working with Rose alongside that, into our shadow as well, that Mama Cacao can really help us to navigate along with mugwort, which is another plant that really, really helps us to come into the belly, come into the shadow, and also gives us a lot of psychic protection as we're going into that, shall we say, the underworld, the unconscious that's within us. So you could see that as like, that's the underworld and the unconscious shadow, the belly, the body, the feminine. And then we have the heart space, which is the middle world, which is this physical plane that we're connecting in. It's also the heart as the action body as well. And obviously the synergetic benefits of Mama Cacao as a heart opener, as well as Rose as a heart opener and a protector as well. And I like to work also with, and this is in the course as well, is working with the mind. So Mama Cacao helps us with clarity, with focus, with connecting to the pure mind. And then lion's mane, who's talking a lot about mycelium, like I get very geeky about mycelium and fungi, because they're so, well, like that light, they're so out of this world, and they're so in the earth as well, that they're really, really connected to above and below, and they have a lot of wisdom to share, and we know so little still about them and what they can do and how they can absolutely, excuse my French, but eat the most toxic shit, even plastic, and dissolve it. So a lion's mane is a fungi that there's some known to be a certain type of Buddhists that worked in the temples with this lion's mane fungi to help them with focus and to help them to access the wisdom within their meditation. And it also has a lot of benefits for us in terms of working with the mind and the neural pathways in the mind, and just cleaning that up a bit, cleaning the gunk out, shall I say, so we have more clarity and focus, and that we can then access deeper levels of meditation as a result. And it also works with the gut as well. And Mama Cacao works with the gut, of clearing the gut as well, which is very, very key aspect of working with the nervous system, and also working with depression and anxiety and all of that as well, or anybody that finds themselves getting into overwhelm very regularly. That is one thing that can really help to the entire nervous system, because the brain in our gut is probably bigger than our mind, and then our heart is even bigger again, in terms of the intelligence that lies within there. So it's really, I really share from that, of these three different aspects of our being: the mind, the heart, and the body, and really bringing these into alignment. And throughout that as well, whether people are interested in becoming facilitators, that's their choice if they want to go down that road, that there is a module that is about space holding essentially as well, which can just be for ourselves as well, and developing that for ourselves. But really, it's a good introduction in the Cacao Practitioner Course to plant spirit communication and to space holding as well. And if someone is looking into potentially co-creating with Mama Cacao in Facilitator's Course, it's really, as much as we can, working with a decolonized approach as well, which is really, really important. There's a lot of cacao ceremonies out there. There's a lot of cacao ceremony trainings, shall we say, but they do not focus on this direct relating with the earth, with Mama Cacao, and indeed with other plants as well. So I'm really sharing a lot of the fruits of my experience and continued teachings as well, directly with the plants. So I wanted just to give a little bit of time and space for any questions that you may have, or even any sharings that you may have yourself, based on anything that's come up in this session together, or anything that you have experienced as well before, with Mama Cacao or with other plant spirits communicating with you. The floor is open. Hi, Gus.
It's lovely to be here.
Lovely to have you. Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so glad I saw your email, and I'm so glad I was free this evening. It's been very, there's a lot of synchronicity at work for me. So a big thank you from the heart. Is this bit being recorded? It's fine if it is.
I can cut it if you want.
No, it's fine. I'll temper what I'm going to say accordingly.
Thanks.
So, and I might write to you tomorrow with a little bit more by way of an expanded thank you, but just to say thank you for the connections I've had with you before when you were still in Scotland in various plant medicine contexts, which the benefit of which, the grace of which, the gift of which continue to unfold. And specifically, so that I don't ramble interminably, I'm so delighted because there's a huge synchronicity in your emphasis, as I hear it, on mycelium and fungi tonight, because that's what I've been led to work with really for the last year, since last January. And as ever with me, it's a bit of a surprise that I'm engaging with this. It's not really been part of my path growing up or growing through adult life, but I'm absolutely, to the fullest extent possible, trying to listen. And I feel like I'm stumbling in the dark and I don't really know what I'm doing, but that feels okay as well. But I'm so, and you mentioned actually another bit of deep resonance for me, because my sense in the last 3 or 4 months of the mycelium network of fungi being my ancestors, being part of the ancestral pattern, and I am part of them as they are part of me. And so actually just to hear you referring to some of that had deep resonance, but also a sense of affirmation that I'm not off my head completely, because at least one other person on the planet.
Oh, there's more than me, don't you worry.
Actually, I mean, I know that I am actually part of this huge community, you know, which is the whole planet.
Yes.
And I think very briefly, the other thing, I did another long pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela in the autumn and walked through some woodlands where I was compelled, I mean, I would say almost literally compelled by the force of the presence of these trees to stop my walk and just sit and listen. And this profound awareness of listening to a conversation which has gone on for thousands of years. So, yeah, so I think that's probably all, but just to say that what you've shared and how you've shared has resonated and in some respects affirmed a path that I'm just kind of plugging away at on my own at the moment. But very happily and very contentedly stumbling through my unknowing and learning as I go along. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, Michelle.
Yeah, I can really relate to what you just shared, Gus. I I was actually supposed to move to Sweden last weekend to go live with my aunt in the forest. Yeah, I tested positive for COVID, so it's like I'm just stuck in the city again longer than I wanted to, and I feel like I've always lived in a village, and I've always been like outside so much, and I've just really lost this connection with nature. So I'm just yeah, really trying to find my way back, and also just, you know, get a deeper understanding of the plants and the earth and everything. So it's really, yeah, really amazing to just be here and to also join the course. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I also, last year in January, I started a study program in Ayurveda. So it's like I've really been working with like the energies, and like I like how you also say with the mind and the heart and the body, like that's really something that I've also been trying to work with a lot. So it's really exciting to continue with that, and that it fits very well together also with like these, it's like cultures on different sides of the world, but they are so similar. And yeah, it's really beautiful to see that. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for your sharing. I also share that as well, as like from a very young age. It's like, am I making this up? There's nobody else around to speak to about this. And I'm very grateful also to have had guidance as well later on from human teachers too, that had more experience. And especially when we're working with plants that have quite, or fungi, shall we say, have a lot of power behind them as well. A lot of people think that just because you can buy cacao means that it's a free-for-all, and actually it's not, for two things. One is that a lot of people will not be able to access the depth and breadth and beauty that Mama Cacao can really share when we connect with that sacredness and that humility and intention. The other aspect is that they do also have the power to unearth, shall we say, that's the word that's coming, unearth trauma in the body that we may have not yet accessed. And if we're not going into opening up a sacred space for ourselves, or have somebody else that's experienced to guide us with that, that can open us up to a whole set of problems, shall we say. And it can have a big impact on the nervous system, on the body, on the psyche. And that is, I'm just purely working on this physical level right now. But especially in these times that we are in, there is a lot of toxicity, and there are a lot of parasitic energies, shall we say, that are around, because they are on their way out. But while they're on their way out, because the frequencies of the planet are changing and increasing so rapidly, feminist dragon ears, they are getting shifted and they're on their way out. And that's great, but on their way, they will try and work their way through people and different situations. And I don't need to talk about what's going on in the world for you to know most likely what I'm speaking of as well. So it's also very, like, so that's why I say, you know, earlier on, it's also it's really to be very aware that aspect of it. It's not, I'm not trying to share this to instill fear, not at all. That's not my way. But I am sharing a word of caution when we are connecting with plants, and especially those that are master plants, or depending on the level of fungi as well, what we're dealing with too, is to approach with that humility and that listening, and like I say, with the offerings and that too. But when we feel that we might be delving into worlds, shall we say, that we need a little bit of guidance in for safety and for protection, and to take care of ourselves and our nervous systems and our psyche that are under a lot of pressure in these times, is that do reach out, and there are people there, and obviously myself included in that you can reach out to, that and they may be able to offer support, or in my case there's courses, I offer mentorship as well. If not me, I'm always very, very happy as well to point towards different resources, and there's other practitioners as well that I can recommend for that. For instance, there might be some plants that I don't work with, but I know others work with, for instance. I'm not saying my way is the way, I'm just saying that this is the way that I've been taught and I've been guided by, and I give thanks to Mama Cacao. I give thanks to my plant teachers and guides, and I also give thanks to the elders and to the Indigenous teachers that have also guided me so that I can be here sharing this with you. So thank you once again for joining. A real pleasure to share with you. And I hope to connect with you very, very soon. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.